Good evening and welcome to our special webinar on Iceland with Discover the World. My name's William Gray. I'm a travel writer and photographer. I've worked with Discover the World for many years and enjoyed several trips to Iceland with them. Firstly, on behalf of Discover the World, thank you for your support during these difficult times and for your continued interest and enthusiasm for visiting Iceland. As you know, this amazing destination began welcoming tourists again last month. As the world's leading Iceland specialist with 37 years experience, Discover the World has been working very closely with its local partners to support the return of tourism with the utmost care and consideration. We want you to feel safe throughout your journey. And as well as inspiring you to visit Iceland, this webinar is all about helping you to plan your holiday with confidence at every step of your journey. We'll be exploring 6 exciting itineraries, including 2 brand new holidays from Discover the World. And they're particularly good value this summer with up to 30% savings. We'll explain as well how our new flexibility promise gives you that all-important peace of mind and financial security. And of course, we'll have our panel of Iceland's leading travel experts, all long-standing partners of Discover the World, to answer your questions. Our 4 panelists are online, and we'll meet them all live a little later. We're delighted to welcome Fredrik Paulsen. After retiring from the fishing industry, in 2003, Fredrik found a new passion in the hotel industry. And he's now the owner of Hotel Ranga, one of our favorite properties in Iceland. You'll see why shortly. He can regularly be found at the hotel sipping brennivin, Iceland's signature spirit, with guests and sharing his personal recommendations for the best places to explore. Abby Björgvinsson began his career leading Discover the World's whale-watching tours. An expert on Icelandic tourism for more than 3 decades, he created Iceland's first whale museum in Húsavík, and in 2014, he helped set up the amazing Lava Centre, not far from Hotel Ranga in the beautiful southwest of Iceland. Linnea Gylfadóttir, sales manager at North Sailing, the wonderful whale-watching company operating from Húsavík in North Iceland. Humpbacks, orcas, even blue whales can be seen on trips aboard their beautiful restored wooden schooners and trawlers, and the rather special silent electric-powered schooner called Opal. And finally, Clive Stacey, Managing Director and co-founder of Discover the World. Clive first visited Iceland over 40 years ago on a 3-week trip that became a life-changing adventure, laying the foundation for what is now one of the UK's leading independent tour operators. He was on the first flight back to Iceland last month, and you can see the videos from his road trip on the Discover the World website, and we'll also have a little look at the first one a little later on in this presentation. Now, please do send in your questions for our panel using the Q&A button, which you should see on your screen right now. We'll try to get through as many as possible. Thank you also if you've already sent in your questions. We've had a fantastic response, and we'll be trying to get through as many of them as possible. Apologies if we don't get around to answering yours, but we will be sending out a follow-up email covering everything that you've asked, either before this webinar or this evening. And of course, you can also find out more information on the Discover the World website, which you can see on the screen there, or by talking to one of our travel specialists. And don't forget, you can now, thanks to the wonders of technology we've all been learning over the past few months, you can now arrange a virtual appointment by video call to discuss your holiday plans. Okay, so just to give you an idea of the format for this webinar, I'll be spending about the next 30 minutes or so covering the highlights of Iceland, some ideas for holidays this summer and beyond, and a look at how the new regulations affect your journey. We'll then go to our panel for 30 minutes of questions, and we'll try and wrap things up by around 7:15. So, let me just start by giving you some background to Discover the World. As I mentioned earlier, they've been arranging holidays to Iceland for 37 years now. They were the world's first tour operator to offer self-drive itineraries there, as well as river rafting, snowmobiling, and super jeep safaris. In 1993, they practically invented whale watching in Iceland. They also launched school trips there and were the first UK tour operator to offer dedicated Northern Lights holidays to the country. As a travel writer, I find it's rare to find an independent operator with that kind of heritage. And I find when dealing with the Iceland team at Discover the World, you always get the feeling that I'm talking to genuine experts who really know and love the place inside out. That kind of passion and first-hand advice counts a lot these days when there's so much online that you're not always sure whether to trust or not. And also in these unprecedented days of uncertainty in the travel industry, Discover the World's new flexibility promise offers that all-important peace of mind and financial security. You can change your travel dates or destination up to 7 days prior to departure. You can transfer your booking to another person suggested by you up to 7 days prior to departure. If Discover the World has to cancel your holiday for whatever reason, they will give you a full refund and not a credit note. Also, if you're traveling to Iceland and you're a member of your group develop COVID-19 symptoms prior to travel, or if any of you are forced to self-isolate and can no longer travel, Discover the World will refund all recoverable holiday costs upon receiving written evidence. Rest assured, you will be well looked after. Never has Discover the World's commitment to strong customer service been so important as it is now. This, combined with their expertise and long-standing partnerships with suppliers, offers you a way to explore Iceland safely this summer. So what is so special about Iceland? Why are we so desperate to return to this amazing destination or encourage first-time visitors to experience the land of fire and ice? Now, if I could only use one word to describe Iceland, it would have to be dynamic. Take the light, for example. It's constantly changing. Sunset here making the horsetail plume of Seljalandsfoss on the south coast glow a rich golden colour. To more subtle tones here, sea mist sandwiched between Viennetta-striped mountains and those lovely summer meadows. If you're a photographer like me, Iceland's quality of light will keep you very happy indeed. But it's also dynamic by its very nature. Volcanic rock versus ice versus sea. It's a continuous battle which is continuously shaping and reshaping the country. You see it here at Jökulsárlón, a lagoon of icebergs shed from one of Iceland's ice caps. Iceland rose from the surface of the Atlantic 18 million years ago. It's been growing ever since, about 5 centimeters a year, and is now the world's 18th largest island. But the North Atlantic gnaws away at it, and the result is black sand beaches stretching as far as the eye can see, towering sea cliffs, some of Europe's tallest, and strange coastal features like this one here, many shrouded in local folklore, of course, about petrified trolls and giants. The coast, rich and turbulent, right in the path of the Gulf Stream, is a magnet to wildlife. From Arctic terns like this one to humpback whales. And if you love puffins, Iceland is one of the best places in the world to see them. The interior, Iceland's volcanic heart, is the most dynamic of all. This is Thorsmork, the hidden valley, breathtaking location for hiking and four-wheel drive super jeep safaris, snaking between volcanoes, crossing glacial rivers, not a road or building in sight. The relationship between people and the land, how they farm, how they fish, how they harness natural energy or horsepower, is equally exciting and dynamic. The seasons too. Iceland is definitely not a once-in-a-lifetime place to visit. You have to go at least twice, I'd say, to experience summer for the midnight sun and winter for the northern lights. It really is a year-round destination. But Iceland is open now. So what can you expect when visiting Iceland this summer? This is the midnight sun, viewed from the north coast. Iceland enjoys 24-hour daylight from late May to mid-July, and long hours of daylight well into August and September. And of course, even in midsummer, you can still do winter activities. The ice caps are there year-round for activities like snowmobiling and glacier walking. Let's just summarize some of the highlights then for the summer season. They're the long days and the midnight sun up in the north. Perfect conditions for hiking, self-drive and other activities. It's peak season from whale watching from May through to September and beyond. Interior tracks are open from late June to mid-September, and the seabird colonies are teeming with puffins, guillemots and other species. Temperatures can reach 20 to 25 degrees in July, staying mild right through to September. But the best way to describe the weather is, you guessed it, dynamic. In summer, you might be basking in warm sunshine one moment and then popping on a jacket for a blustery walk the next. Let's take a quick look at the other seasons. Autumn is generally a quieter period following summer. I love the colours that you see on the tundra and the lava flows. It turns a lovely golden red colour. Of course, it's berry harvesting season. September is a beautiful month for self-drive, and the northern lights can be visible from as early as late August. Winter, of course, is prime season for seeing the Aurora Borealis. Orca watching is fantastic in West Iceland. Self-drive is definitely still possible, especially in the south and west. And it's an ideal time for a short break in a country hotel, like Hotel Ranga, that we'll see in a minute. The interior, though, is closed, except to guided four-wheel drive Super Jeep tours. Come spring and the days start to get longer, there's warmer weather, ideal for those self-drive holidays again. It's a quieter period before the busy summer. The spring equinox marks a final peak in northern lights activity, and birds, including puffins and golden plovers, arrive to nest around late May. There's a great reason to visit Iceland, I think, at any time of the year. I'm going to show you some of the country's highlights, some self-drive routes and holiday ideas. But first, let's put all of this into the context of travel this summer. Now, of course, it's important to remember that regulations, restrictions, and advice are constantly changing. So please do check Discover the World's website for the latest information, including links to both the UK and Icelandic governments and our FCO and NHS guidance. Iceland has been widely praised and recognized for its successful response to COVID-19, controlling the virus with large-scale testing, contact tracing, and early quarantine and isolation measures. Being an island helped. Having the lowest population density in Europe helped. And as the country reopens for tourism, Iceland's sparsely populated, wide-open landscapes make it particularly appealing for anyone in search of a holiday with natural social distancing. As I mentioned, there are detailed Q&As on the Discover the World website, covering everything you need to know about planning a trip to Iceland, what to expect when you're there, what to do for the return journey. They'll be constantly updated. And of course, our team of Iceland experts are always there to help with any queries you may have. Flights from the UK to Iceland with Iceland Air are currently operating from London Heathrow and Glasgow. The schedule, again, as I mentioned earlier, is being added to all the time. Currently, though, it's 4 flights a week from Heathrow, going up to 7 from July the 13th, and it'll be 3 times a week from Glasgow from July the 13th. To give you an idea of what to expect on the flight, I'm just going to play you a short 2-minute video from Iceland Air. arrival in Iceland, you will be required to take a COVID-19 test to avoid a 14-day quarantine. This costs £65 or £53 if booked in advance, but Discover the World will pay for this test for all of its clients traveling in July and August. You should receive your test results by text within 24 hours of arrival, and children born after 2005 do not have to pay to be tested. You can find out more about how this works on the Discover the World website, including all the latest travel updates, including, of course, that the FCO has now lifted its advisory against all non-essential overseas travel. And following your return from Iceland, you are no longer required to spend 14 days in quarantine back in the UK. So you can see that a lot of precautions and systems have been put in place to help ensure your safety and the safety of others on the journey to and from Iceland. Now let's look at the bit in between. Now you only have to glance at a map of Iceland to feel your wanderlust stirring. It's intriguing, isn't it? All those ins and out, that convoluted coastline, the West Fjords jutting into the Atlantic like a sea fan snagged in an ocean current, and that great big blank empty bit in the middle, a few ice caps splodged across the grainy canvas of the volcanic plains in the middle of Iceland. Let's add the main road network, and a few things immediately strike you. The middle bit, the interior or highlands, has no surface roads, just gravel tracks accessible by four-wheel drive vehicles during summer. Iceland only has a population of around 360,000 people, and around 2/3 live in Reykjavik or the surrounding towns in that corner of Iceland. There's potential in this corner for smaller circuits and shorter breaks. If you look at the west side of Iceland, you'll notice two intriguing peninsulas jutting out into the North Atlantic, the Snæfellsnes Peninsula and the West Fjords. And they're two great locations for getting off the beaten track in some stunning coastal scenery. And of course, a road goes all the way around Iceland, the Ring Road or Route 1, raising a tantalizing prospect of going full circle. And that's exactly what Clive Stacey, Discover the World's managing director, did when Iceland reopened in mid-June. I'm just going to play you the first of 4 30-second video diaries he made, just to give you a quick insight into his experience, literally just a week or two ago. Discover the World has a large portfolio of Iceland holidays, but we'll be focusing on self-drives this evening. If you love exploring beautiful places, experiencing the thrill of the open road, the freedom and flexibility of a touring holiday, Iceland is definitely one of the world's great self-drive destinations. The road system is fantastic, it's well made and maintained. Iceland road builders have almost made it an art form, arrowing you through spectacular landscapes towards rugged basalt mountains, brooding ice caps, volcanoes, dragon-back fjords, or one of Iceland's 30,000 odd waterfalls. In summer, with pretty much 24-hour daylight, there's so much time to explore. Self-drive in Iceland is very straightforward. You simply dawdle from one amazing spot to the next, joining the dots between a succession of small, friendly countryside or waterfront hotels. Discover the World enhanced the whole self-drive experience by giving you their iDiscover app. Now, this is free to download. It's a very clever digital travel guide that's fully interactive, allowing you to embellish your itinerary as you go along. You can browse a directory of scenic wonders, must-see sites, hidden gems, activities and places to eat. And you can even do things like find the nearest petrol station, check the road conditions or the weather forecast as you go along. So it's a really useful tool. You've seen what the roads are like. Regular car is fine for most itineraries. Here's a selection of the vehicles you can expect to hire, from a two-wheel drive Golf to an all-wheel drive Skoda Octavia. But if you want to go off-road and tackle the tracks that cross the interior of Iceland, you'll need a four-wheel drive like the Toyota Land Cruiser in the bottom right there. So let's look at a few ideas for some great Iceland self-drives. If you're looking for a relaxing summer break in Iceland, staying in a stylish country hotel, surrounded by miles of empty, peaceful countryside, take a look at our summer nights at Ranga holiday in the southwest corner of Iceland. Ranga is one of Iceland's leading hotels and a Discover the World favorite. There's such a strong, long-standing partnership here that you can be confident not only of a friendly welcome, but also, I think, a level of care and attention to detail that we'll all be needing when we start going on holiday again. We're delighted to have Fredrik, Ranga's owner, with us this evening. And he'll be able to give you some more detail, but let me just give you a flavour of what it's like to stay here. And flavour is actually a pretty good place to start, because I've been lucky enough to stay at Ranga, and the fine dining is definitely one of the highlights. Remember the wild mushroom soup and lamb fillet, and the seafood is absolutely out of this world, very fresh. Just a 90-minute drive from Reykjavik, the hotel looks out across a wild salmon fishing river in one direction and the perfect cone of Mount Hekla in the other. The views looking inward are equally captivating. Ranga's interior is rustic, cozy and luxurious, but it's a sign of the hotel's individuality that 8 of its 52 rooms are extravagant suites themed on each of the continents. So if you've been desperate to start traveling again, you can actually go to Iceland and then say you've also been to Africa, Asia, or Antarctica, or any of the other continents as well in one holiday. Here's a little sneak peek inside the new Icelandic Suite, which opened a few years ago, or a couple of years ago at Hotel Ranga, I think. Another signature feature of Hotel Ranga are the outdoor hot tubs. As I'm sure you know, geothermal pampering is pretty much compulsory when you visit Iceland. And we'll be looking at iconic spas like the Blue Lagoon a little bit later on. But just imagine sinking into one of these hot tubs outside Hotel Ranga and watching a long midsummer sunset. Around this time of year, this southwest corner of Iceland basks in the glow of the midnight sun. You can see the midnight sun from the north coast of the country, which is just shy of the Arctic Circle. But down here in the southwest Iceland, summer brings long, almost endless days, which you can fill with as many activities as you like. Drag yourself away from those hot tubs, and Hotel Ranga's amazing state-of-the-art observatory has a solar telescope, which you can use to study sunspots and other features of our star. And of course, during the autumn and winter months, the observatory offers a mesmerizing window on the northern lights, as well as planets like Venus and Saturn and other features of the night sky. You'll notice that the summer nights at Ranga holiday is available as a 3, 5 or 7 night itinerary. And that's because the hotel is perfectly located for exploring nearby natural wonders in your own hire car or as part of an organized day tour. You could easily fill a week if you have the time. You could, for example, take a full day 4-wheel drive Super Jeep safari here to Thorsmork, deep in the interior. It's worth remembering that these trips are also available for private tours for a vehicle all to yourself. The ferry to the Westman Islands is operating again, so this volcanic archipelago lying just off the south coast also makes an excellent day trip. Or you can just hop in your own hire car, and a short drive away from Hotel Ranga, you'll reach Seljalandsfoss, that beautiful waterfall that we saw earlier. You can use your iDiscover app, and you'll find ideas for exploring right off the beaten track. Places you might have all to yourself. This is Gljúfrafoss, a hidden waterfall just 20 minutes away from Seljalandsfoss, which is better known. Further down the road, the coast road, you'll find this big show-off of a waterfall, mighty Skogafoss, where you can walk through rainbows right up to its base or climb the cliffs to a viewing platform near the top of this incredible curtain of water. Not far from these waterfalls, the brilliant Lava Centre has now reopened. It's got an earthquake simulator, lava corridors, huge models of Icelandic's volcanic core, and a large rooftop platform where you can actually get panoramic views towards the Eyjafjallajökull, Katla, and Hekla volcanoes. But I particularly love this interactive room in the center where you can use hand gestures to initiate a virtual volcanic eruption. Further along the coast at Skaftafell, you can hike into the fringes of the incredible Vatnajökull wilderness, a vast national park about the size of North Yorkshire. The ice reaches depths of 950 meters here. It literally smothers entire active volcanoes. And what you can see here, though, is one of the so-called outlet glaciers that flow from the ice cap hidden behind those mountains. And that sets the scene for something quite extraordinary. The glaciers have their snouts in coastal lagoons, and here at Jökulsárlón, they carve icebergs, thousands of them, into the water. And you can drive along the coast road and literally step out of your car to see this sort of view, looking inland across the iceberg lagoon to the Vatnajökull ice cap in the distance. Now, closer to Hotel Ranga, the Golden Circle, which you might have heard of, rounds up three of the country's iconic natural wonders, Þingvellir, Gullfoss, and Giza. It's a 300-kilometer loop east of Reykjavik, and you can easily fit it into a day's independent touring. Gullfoss, the Golden Falls, one of Iceland's most iconic natural wonders, is now open again. Plenty of space for you to enjoy it from several viewpoints. And I should mention here that the Icelandic Travel Association has issued COVID-19 health and safety recommendations to all tourism businesses and attractions. And Discover the World has been in discussion with all its suppliers, so their team of Iceland experts can advise you on what measures they've each taken. Also on the Golden Circle is Þingvellir National Park, a World Heritage Site. It's where Iceland's ancient open-air assembly, one of the world's oldest existing parliaments, first met in the year 930. It's also a shrine to plate tectonics. Canyons like this one have been formed by rifting of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, the North American plate on one side, the Eurasian plate on the other. And in one or two of those, you can actually snorkel or dive between two continents, almost touching both sides at once. Here's another watery wonder on the Golden Circle, but probably not one you really want to be taking a dip in. Strokka is one of the world's most obliging geysers, erupting every 6 minutes or so, spouting scalding water up to 40 meters into the air, like a great steaming exclamation mark. Let's look at an alternative option for a short break in the southwest, where you can combine the volcanic and coastal scenery of the Reykjanes Peninsula with the Golden Circle and Blue Lagoon. The Reykjanes Explorer and Blue Lagoon Break is a 3-night self-drive. This peninsula is absolutely wonderful and often overlooked, I think, by a lot of visitors, riddled with geothermal highlights, mud pools, bubbling hot springs, and the coastline is equally dramatic. You're based at the Northern Light Inn, nestled in this extraordinary moss-covered lavascape. You're close enough to the Golden Circle to spend a day doing that, and you're literally right next door to the Blue Lagoon, where you have a couple of opportunities to relax in the warm, milky blue waters of the world-famous outdoor geothermal pool. There's also a sauna here, of course, and various spa and massage treatments available, plus actually a really fantastic restaurant too. Let's zoom out a bit now and include more of southwest Iceland. Now, just a couple of hours drive north from Reykjavik, the Snæfellsnes Peninsula and mountains of Borgarfjörður make another great self-drive destination that works really well in combination with Hotel Ranga in the southwest. In fact, these areas work so well together, they're the inspiration for Discover the World's brand new Wonders of the Southwest holiday. This is a 7-night self-drive split mainly between Hotel Ranga and another of our favorite rural properties, Hotel Husafell. After a few days at Hotel Ranga, exploring the Golden Circle, Thorsmork maybe, the south coast and the Western Islands, you drive up to Hotel Husafell. Very modern, very stylish hotel, contemporary interior, bright rooms, and some lovely sculpture and paintings by a local artist. There's also a fabulous restaurant with these wonderful floor-to-ceiling picture windows which look out on the surrounding mountains. Like Ranga, Hotel Husafell is never far from a natural wonder or two. This is Hraunfossa, the lava falls, where spring water emerges all along this ancient lava flow, creating this really quite beautiful marbling effect as it flows into the river. Hotel Husafell is also an excellent base for several unique tours. This is one of my favorites. It's called Into the Glacier, and you travel by 8-wheel drive vehicle up onto the Llanjökull ice cap before exploring a 500-meter long tunnel that's been carved into the ice. You literally walk into the heart of an ice cap. It's an extraordinary experience. Another tour, another subterranean adventure, but this time you follow boardwalks through Iceland's largest lava cave. Don't worry, it's well and truly dormant. And you can easily combine both those tours, into the glacier and the lava cave, on this holiday. I'd also highly recommend you spend one of your days driving around the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. It has the most stunning coastline, a mixture of sandy and black black pebble beaches, I should say. Also wonderful sea cliffs, sea arches, blowholes, sea stacks, with a snow-capped volcano right at its tip. You can see that in the distance on this photograph. As well as some beautiful coastal walks, you can take a boat trip in search of whales and dolphins, or walk on the slopes of the volcano itself. And from its 1,446 meters summit, you can sometimes see right across Breiðafjörður to the West Fjords. Now, if you really want to get off the beaten track, take a self-drive in this corner of Iceland. It's remote, little visited, and quite spellbinding part of the country. There's a new 14-night self-drive holiday from Discover the World called Iceland Backroads, which combines the West Fjords and the Snæfellsnes Peninsula, returning via Hotel Husafell and even including time to drive the Golden Circle and experience the south coast and the Reykjanes Peninsula. Why should you visit the West Fjords? Here's one pretty good reason: the Njandi Waterfall. Quite spectacular, 7 cascades for the price of 1. This is the largest fan-shaped section of this remarkable falls in the West Fjord. This will also make you giddy. The Latroberg Sea Cliffs, Iceland's westernmost point, they're actually some of the tallest sea cliffs in Europe, over 400 meters high, and they're also Europe's largest seabird city. It's a top spot for puffins between May and early August, when they arrive to nest in burrows on the cliff tops. This is how close you can get. And other seabirds that move into the high-rise real estate of Latroberg every summer include guillemots, gannets, kittiwakes, fulmars, and razorbills, thousands and thousands of them. Even if you're not a keen bird watcher, I think this is a wildlife spectacle still not to be missed. I think in the West Fjords, you really feel like you've got away from it all when you spend a few days dawdling around this corner of Iceland. But if you love the idea of West Iceland but want to do less driving, perhaps, I've got another idea for you. This is Gracia Lodge, Discover the World's 3-bedroom self-catering property on the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. The 3-night West Iceland escape at Gracia Lodge is perfect if you're looking for an independent short break in a spectacular location just a 2-hour drive north of Reykjavik. You've got fantastic hiking right on your doorstep, some amazing beaches and clifftop scenery to explore, and optional tours ranging from whale watching to glacier snowmobiling, all of which you can pre-book with Discover the World. Some of Iceland's most iconic sites are found nearby, including the very well-known Kirkjufell mountain shown here. This is the interior of Gracia Lodge. It's a lovely little south-facing property with a light, open-plan design and sleeps up to 6 people in 3 bedrooms. So before we move on to the Q&As with our expert panel, I'd just like to show you one more holiday, Discover the World's classic Around Iceland. It's a 14-night self-drive, rounding up the country's iconic natural wonders, wildlife, and highlights. If you want to see it all, this is the holiday for you. Now, on this classic drive, you'll cover around 1,300 kilometers or so, circumnavigating the country. But the itinerary's been really carefully crafted to allow you to linger in some of the country's most breathtaking locations. It's not a mad dash from one overnight stop to the next. Now, we've already looked at many of the highlights. Here's a car, for example, heading towards the mighty Vatnajökull ice cap in the south, but you'll also have time to linger in the East Fjords, with picture-perfect villages like Seyðisfjörður here, which is renowned for its arts and crafts scene. And in North Iceland, you'll witness some of Iceland's most astonishing natural wonders. Dettifoss, Europe's most powerful waterfall, 200 cubic meters of water thrown 45 meters into a canyon every second. The ground trembles beneath you. Thick curtain of water frothing and thundering like a gigantic cappuccino machine right in front of you. Lake Miða, a huge spring-fed freshwater lake, also in North Iceland, with a road right around it, perfect for a lakeside circuit, visiting volcanic features ranging from geothermal springs to fresh lava fields and volcanic cones. And for bird watchers, the lake is one of the best places in Europe for seeing wild ducks, swans, and divers. And off the north coast of Iceland, you have whales. Not just humpbacks, everyone's favorite, of course, but minke whales, large schools of white-beaked dolphins, and if you're lucky, blue whales and orcas. The action takes place in Skalfandi Bay, and the departure point for trips is Húsavík, Europe's whale-watching capital, where North Sailing's fleet of lovingly restored wooden herring trawlers have found a new lease of life as whale-watching boats. Well, I hope that's given you plenty of inspiration and confidence to consider booking a holiday to Iceland this summer. Whenever you choose to travel, the Iceland specialists at Discover the World are ready to help you plan your holiday, whether it's a self-drive this summer or a Northern Lights break in the autumn or winter. I'm now delighted to welcome our guest panel. Just going to change to our screen so you can see them all. Frederick, Abby, Linné, and Clive. Thank you so much for sending in your questions, everybody. Frederick, I'm going to, if you don't mind, start with you and say, ask you, is Iceland completely open? Are all the restaurants and hotels operating as usual, or have some remained closed?
I think we can say that practically everything that matters is open. There may be some hotels in Reykjavik mainly that are still closed, but all the activities around the countryside, more or less in the places where Discover the World is now proposing to people to go, is open. It has been open more or less since the early spring, because the Icelanders have been traveling all over the place in the recent days. It's been very, very nice. We've had very good weather, and people are very appreciative of everything that's happening in Iceland. And so yes, I can say that almost everything is open and back to normal.
And Abby, museums like the Lava Centre have also reopened. Is it business as usual there?
Well, they have a little shorter opening times at this time still, but it's open for 4 days a week from 10 o'clock in the morning till 5 in the afternoon. So I think people will find that a visit to the Lava Centre is really worthwhile.
That's great news. And Linné, for tours like your North Sailing whale watching trips, are there any restrictions in place on the boats, for example?
Well, the restrictions that are here in Iceland, they don't affect us that much. And due to the size of our boats, we can spread the people on the boats. So we are completely full aware of distancy rules. So if we feel like we are having too many people booked on a certain departure, we are so lucky to have 9 other boats to put on schedule. So yes, we can simply add another boat and crew to the departure, and so the boats don't get too crowded. Yes, on top of that, our boats are quite spacious, and we have not been filling the full capacity on our tours recently, just to not have it too crowded. And of course, there's plenty of fresh air out in our bay, so it's the best place to be. And needless to say, we have hand sanitizers at every stop. We clean the overalls every day and disinfect the overalls, so visiting us is completely fine.
And I understand, Linné, that the humpback whales have been already showing up in good numbers this summer and are quite curious of the boats, getting quite close to you.
Yes, absolutely. This start has been amazing, and we have had such good weather in June. So yes, almost sun and 15 degrees plus every day in June. So it's been amazing. And the humpback whales are really the stars of the show. They can be very curious and playful. They tend to lift their heads up from the water to have a look at the people on board, and they seem to be just as curious about us as we are of them. So it's been amazing to watch them recently.
Sounds fantastic. Take me there now. Actually, somebody who has been there most recently, Clive, if I can bring you in now. As you saw earlier, you were on the first flight back to Iceland from the UK. Could you tell us a little bit about what it was like to fly to Iceland with the new regulations in place?
Yeah, I can. I can definitely confirm that the weather was superb. Was just about all the time I was there, and the driving was remarkably easy. The roads are super clear. Just sharing it with the Icelanders, and sometimes traveling on Route 1, Iceland's motorway. In inverted commas, it was ridiculously quiet. I mean, didn't see another car for half an hour sometimes. So it really is, the perfect time. I first travelled there about 50 years ago, and it's pretty much like it was then, except we've now got tarmac roads, and if you want to get off road, there's dirt tracks as well. As we did indeed, but it's like COVID-19 never existed. Just all the necessary precautions when they're appropriate. But you have to remember that by and large, COVID is not anything really significant in Iceland anymore. Thank goodness.
Thank you, Clive. That's interesting. Abby, can I ask you? I believe you grew up in the West Fjords region, which we touched on during the talk just now. Now, for someone considering whether to include that part of Iceland in their holiday or not, because it's a little bit off the beaten track, it's a little bit more driving, for example, what would you say to convince them to go there?
Well, it's not that far to drive from Reykjavik to the West Fjords, and there are different places where you can stay overnight, different little hotels or hostels, guest houses. But I think the main thing is that you have this stunning view around every turn of every corner, new fjords, new views, and it's just amazing to drive through those areas where you have all this tranquility and so few people around as well. And it's just amazing to travel the West Fjords because, as I say, you never get bored of the view that you have in front of you because it's changing every 15, 20 minutes, totally different. So you have high mountains, narrow fjords, but also spaces and spacious beaches and all these beautiful waterfalls and quite a lot of hot springs where you can go and dive in or visit some of the local swimming pools, which are everywhere in every little fishing village. And the community of the West Fjords, meaning the people that live there in small fishing villages, is just so welcoming, and sort of they will enhance you whenever you come and to visit various different restaurants that specialize in fish, of course. So I strongly recommend that people should go to the West Fjords. I'm actually leaving tomorrow to go back home because that's where I was born, and I go there every year, and I'm now going to travel for a week.
Brilliant. I knew this webinar would give me itchy feet. It's the one region of Iceland that I haven't yet visited, the West Fjords, so it's definitely on my wish list. Line, if I can come to you next, we've had this question in from a viewer. They've asked, I've travelled to the south and east of Iceland in the past. How does the north compare for activities and scenery?
Well, there are so many wonderful stops here in the north of Iceland, and the first thing that comes to mind is possibly the Diamond Circle that will formally open up in August, but it is still passable. I was there just yesterday driving the Diamond Circle, and it was amazing. There were so few people around, you can see everything so easily. And the Diamond Circle includes places that you have to visit when you come to the north of Iceland. For example, the mighty Dettifoss, the Waterfall, Goðafoss, and of course the stunning Mývatn, where you can enjoy the most beautiful nature. And then there's of course my hometown, Húsavík, which is of course my favorite stop on the Diamond Circle. In Húsavík, you can. It's the only place where you can go whale watching on a sailboat, and even an electric sailboat. So that is something you cannot miss when you come here to the north. Here in Húsavík, they recently opened geothermal sea baths with the most breathtaking view over the bay. So you can even go whale watching from there. And it is just located on the Húsavík hill next to the lighthouse. So I would say that I agree with Abbi. Everywhere you look, there is something new and something surprising, and there are few people, tranquility. Yeah, it is beautiful.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you. Frederick, if I could ask you next. Hotel Ranga, of course, is renowned for its Northern Lights watching, and several viewers are asking, when is the best time to see the Aurora Borealis in Iceland?
Let's say the time we can see them is the winter, of course, because we cannot see them during the summertime, as we have 24-hour daylight, and we need darkness to see them. We see them from late August until maybe middle of April. And it's very difficult to say that any particular month is more likely than another one. But of course, we have more darkness in the shorter months, like in October, later in November, December. But every month is possible. And of course, you have to have a relatively clear sky also to see them. They are not always visible, even if it's a clear sky. But then we have the stargazing facilities where we have two big telescopes. That has been helping us lately a lot to make people very happy at night, because when we have these fantastic starlit nights, we take them out to the observatory and we give a sky tour twice a night, 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock, with an expert coming in from Reykjavik to give us all the information and what he can tell us about the sky. And so in principle, I can say that we are open for the Northern Lights the whole winter.
Wonderful. It's such a great location. I think Hotel Ranga is ideally placed, isn't it? Because it's away from light pollution, away from the city lights of Reykjavik, which is also just so important, isn't it, to get that really intense display of the Northern Lights appearing overhead.
That's
yes.
right. And also, of course, which is it's very close to Reykjavik anyway. It's only a 1 hour, 15-minute drive from Reykjavik, 1.5 hours from the airport. So the location is fantastic in that respect.
Thank you, Frederick. That's brilliant. Line, we talked about the humpback whales that you've been enjoying already this summer. Could you just briefly give us a roundup of the other species that you're likely to see on a whale watching trip, and the sort of average percentage of success of a sighting on one of the tours?
Sorry, I guess I have to unmute myself.
Go ahead.
The most common species here in our bay is the humpback whale. and we see it almost in every tour throughout the season. And it didn't stay for the whale year around until quite recently, to be honest. And we are so lucky that we can now operate the whale watching tours until December even, and even throughout the whole year, because they tend to be staying here the whole year around. The whales come into Skjálfandi Bay for feeding, and we are so lucky that the feeding grounds are good for the whales. The currents are good. This is one of the few places around Iceland where the blue whale comes in quite frequently. And the season for the blue whale is usually early summer, so from May to the end of June, sometimes until mid-July. So that is fantastic to witness the biggest animal to ever live on Earth, just here next to our homes. The white-beaked dolphins are common around here, of course the minke whale as well. And we've had some fin whales recently, sail whales, but they are not as common. So I would say that the most common ones are the humpback whales, the minke whales, the dolphins, harbor porpoises, and occasionally the blue whale in May or June. The success rate is from 97 to 99% in the summertime. In the winter, it becomes around 80% success rate. So the season for the best whale watching opportunities is from May throughout September.
Brilliant, thank you. I always remember on the whale watching trips I've done with you, the bird life is equally spectacular. The gannets plunging into the water and the whales feeding from below. It's quite a David Attenborough experience, isn't it? It's fantastic. Thank you.
We also, if I can just add it, that we have a puffin island here in the bay, only 30 minutes away from the harbor. So if people want to include puffin watching in their tours, that is also possible, with approximately 200,000 of puffins nesting here in the summertime.
Wonderful, thank you. Appy, if I can come to you next, I can't help but notice your spectacular erupting volcano behind you. I hope the back of your neck is not getting too hot there. I'm just seeing on the chat, we've had a question sent in during the webinar. I'm particularly interested in the geology of Iceland. Can you give some tips for someone who is looking to get an insight into that on their holiday, some highlights they might want to include?
Well, there is no wonder that Discover the World has been offering geology trips to Iceland for decades, and especially for school children that are coming in to learn about the geology of Iceland, because it's a learning book when you come here. You can see all the different things that actually have created Iceland only 15 million years ago. And on average, we have a volcano eruption every 4th, 5th year. And we are anticipating now that, a few of them are already due in time, if you look at the history. But Mountain Hekla, which is close to Rangá, but not close, so that it's in any danger, but you can view it from Rangá if it erupts. It's been due for the last 10 years or so. So you never know when that will happen. And Discover the World has a hotline, so people can actually book on to get notified whenever there is an eruption in Iceland. We had a major eruption up in the highlands only a few years ago, but that caused no problems for anyone because it's in the interior. And that is the photograph that's behind me from the lava flow. And but the geology of Iceland is very spectacular, and a lot of information can be found on various different locations around Iceland. One other thing is that we have had quite a lot of earthquakes lately, and they've been occurring up on off the north coast of Iceland, but that's something that is regular and happens very regularly, and they don't disturb it at all. But you can experience them from time to time, and these are usually quite small ones, but still ranging up to about 5 Richter scale. And that we've had, I think, about 10,000 earthquakes out of the north coast over the last month or so. But that's been no problem at all. But I encourage people to go onto the Discover the World website and just look at the information regarding geology trips and how they can learn more about it. There are several, as I say, several museums and information centers that will highlight the geology of Iceland. So I really recommend that as well.
Thank you, Appy. That's great. Well, from erupting volcanoes to flambéed lamb fillet, Frederick, can I come to you and ask you, can you tell us how the dining arrangements have changed in places like your hotel, like Hotel Ranga?
You mean after the COVID?
In the wake of COVID, yeah.
Yes, of course it did, especially in the very beginning when we were trying to separate people, sort of making a big space between tables and everything. We have been releasing a little bit the pressure on that now lately, but nevertheless, for example, we always keep the distance, and if people want to have a special distance, we have another dining room where they can have more safe distance if they prefer. And as for breakfast, for example, we've had the breakfast table, the buffet changed, and we walk around and clean everything carefully, sort of every second minute. And so in principle, we just do what people want to do. Some people traveling together, of course, they sit at the same tables. Others are less worried and they can sit closer. But if they want, as I say, so I repeat myself, if they want to be with a safe 2-meter distance, we have another dining room where they can have dinner.
Okay. Clive, someone's been in touch asking, we're holidaying in September. If there is a second wave of the virus and we're unable to travel, will we be entitled to a refund?
In a word, yes. And it will be cash back again, no vouchers, no quibble. You would definitely get a refund. I think I also like to point out that there's a lot of kind of concern about actually the process of traveling to Iceland and maybe picking something up on the way, and then getting there, having a test, and then being slightly horrible prison type arrangement for several weeks. First of all, the whole process of flying there is very, very easy. It's pretty much like normal times, except there's very few people and you have to wear a mask at the airport and on the flight. But there's very little different. There's no meal service on board. They give you a bottle of water when you enter the plane. In the last when you arrive in Iceland, the testing is very quick and simple. And in the first 2 weeks that they actually did this, there was over 10,000 people tested, and they found just 4 active cases out of 10,000 people. And if you did happen to be one of those and you needed to go into quarantine, this would be in a fairly good 3-star hotel in Reykjavik. You would have all your food supplied for 2 weeks. There would be people going out shopping for you. We would refund all the costs of the trip that are recoverable, and that will be definitely most of them. Really, although it wouldn't be a good experience, it's not horrendous, and there will be no cost to yourself. The Icelandic health system is at least as good as our own, and there's no issues there. So I just wanted to mention that this is as safe as it could be in the circumstances.
May I add on to this a little bit? We've had several families and some people coming to the hotel already. They have been through the test at the airport and they have come here. They get usually, if they land in the middle of the day, they get the result usually within 5 hours or so. So they're even here for dinner and everything. And I have had no negative opinion from anyone. People find this very safe. They find it very wise. And they really, really appreciate how well they feel that the Icelandic authorities are looking after our guests.
Okay. I think if I could just add to that, the fact you've taken a test, I was there for almost 2 weeks. The fact you've taken one and you've proved that you haven't got COVID, it's so much nicer when you meet and socialise with Icelandic people that they know that you're safe and you know that you're safe. And so it's, to have that assurance for everyone concerned is really, really important, and it enhances our whole experience.
Thank you. Thank you both. I hope that's answered your question. As I mentioned earlier, please go to the Discover the World website for all the up-to-date advice and guidance and information on everything to do with travel out there, the test, what you do before and after, and also your journey back again. That information on the Q&A page on the website is constantly being updated. Excuse me. So please do take a look at that. And if you have any doubt, just give one of the Iceland experts at Discover the World a call, and they'll be able to chat to you as well. I'm just looking at the questions that are coming in. Thank you very much once again for sending them all in. Another Northern Lights question. Frederick, perhaps you'd like to answer this one or have a go at this one. Is the autumn equinox the same as the spring equinox for seeing the Northern Lights, i.e. is one better than the other? And why the equinoxes anyway? Why are they so special?
Well, I think I cannot answer that question. Why? But the only thing I can say that there are so many mixed feelings about it. Fixed opinions. Some people say it's better in the autumn. Some people say it's better in the spring or later in the winter time. We just don't know. And we get so many questions about the Northern Lights which we cannot answer because this is a phenomenon that nobody really knows too much about. But if I could say something, it is probably that our experience in the last 12, 15 years is that the late autumn months seem to be somewhat better than the early spring, but that again is only a speculation.
Okay, thank you. Api, have you anything to add to that, Northern Lights wise?
Yes, well, I was also thinking that one of the reasons that it may be better in the autumn time is that we usually have better weather, because you have to keep in mind that if it's cloudy, if it's raining and you can't see the sky, then you can't see the Northern Lights. So you have to look into the weather conditions. But then there's also this chance of if the weather is cloudy on the south, it's usually bright in the north, and vice versa. So you can go back and forth. If you're really interested in the Northern Lights, you can go either up north if it's southerly winds, and if it's northerly, then you will stay in the south. So that's an advice to take a look at when you're planning your trip.
And we can arrange for a helicopter to take you wherever.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Okay.
I just wanted to add, because I saw one of the questions regarding children. People wanting to bring children into Iceland. I think it's very safe to say that children are very well looked after here in Iceland regarding all activities, regarding safety and things like that. And they also cater for children as well. So I think it's really unique for families to bring their children with them as well, and travel around, because they will be experiencing Iceland in their own way. But we do really look well after our children, and I'm taking my grandchildren on trips around Iceland as well. So I really, really enjoy that.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, actually, Ab, because one of my most memorable trips to Iceland was taking our children on a trip. Actually, we started in North Iceland, Linné, and went all the way around the west side. And yes, as you say, it's absolutely fantastic. They were around 10 or 11, I think. And it's that wonderful mixture of adventure and the fact that it's like an outdoor classroom and they're soaking up all this wonderful information without actually thinking it's boring old school. It really is a living classroom, and they have such great time whale watching, horse riding, glacier walking. That was perhaps the only slightly hairy thing when they were armed with an ice axe. But yeah, apart from that, it was a very memorable trip. We've had a question, actually, what's it like traveling with a baby in Iceland? Anyone like to pick up on that one?
With a baby? I think it's no problem. We get a lot of people with babies, and I guess that it's usually the task for the parents to look after them, but we look after the parents while they are looking after the baby. So I think we do that very properly here.
Yeah, as you'd expect, I'm sure. One for you, Linné. There's a question. Our interest is in a second trip to Iceland. We've stayed at Hotel Ranga and highly recommend it. Thank you. Our interest now is in the northeast area for 7 days. Can you talk a little bit more about this area?
Oh, yes. Like I was saying earlier, there are plenty of stops here and lots of good hotels. For example, the hotel here one of the largest hotels here in town is newly decorated. It is really nice to stay at. There are plenty of hotels in Lake Mývatn that I can recommend. And then there is one really unique stop on the way that I personally enjoy a lot. It is called Tunku Lending. It is as isolated as it gets. It is an old fish factory that has been changed into a guest house. It is located just down by the ocean. It is absolutely stunning, and I recommend a stop there. Well, yeah, there are so many things to see. One of my favorite stops in Iceland is Ásbyrgi, which is a canyon in a bit further east from Húsavík. I really enjoy a stop there, and it's sort of the Þingvellir in the north. A beautiful canyon with rocks and stunning nature. So definitely on my recommendation list. Go to Ásbyrgi.
Sounds fantastic too. Clive, can I come to you next? Had a question. How easy is it to self-drive in midwinter? You must have had experience of that.
Yeah, it's well. If you haven't had any experience of it before, it's a question of taking it steady, go slowly. We always provide people with four-wheel drive cars in winter, and it's certainly possible to drive in a normal car. But if you're not used to driving on snow and ice, then four-wheel drive is definitely an advantage. We've been doing it for right from the start, and we've had very few issues. Just concentrate, enjoy it, take your time, and stop plenty of times so you can actually enjoy the countryside as a driver and not just listen to the passengers telling you what a wonderful scene it was when you're concentrating on the roads.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
If I may add also, we also provide the cars with studs. So there are studs in the tires, so it makes it much easier to drive, even though it's a little bit icy or snowy conditions. So the cars and the tires are, of course, also winter tires. So it shouldn't be a problem if you are careful and you just drive a little bit slower than normal, then it should be fine. But you have to keep your eye on the road. You cannot be viewing all these beautiful landscapes and sceneries during the drive. You have to really drive slowly.
Okay, thank you. A question for you, Line. When is the best time to see orca and where?
Well, orcas are not really common here in Skjálfandi Bay, which is the bay here next to Húsavík. They come here occasionally, mostly in the winter months, I would say. We have been seeing them in March and April, but usually not throughout the summer. I would suggest people to go to the west of Iceland to see the orcas. From Grundarfjörður, you can go out with a company called Lauki Tours, and they are offering great orca watching from there. So that would be that would be the place I would recommend for orcas in Iceland. In the north, it is more of the bigger species, the humpback whales, blue whales, fin whales, etc. But the orcas, I would suggest the west of Iceland.
Thank you, Line. As I say, we've had lots of questions, and apologies if we haven't got round to all of your questions, but as I mentioned earlier, we will be doing a follow-up email to this webinar and putting together all the information so that you've got all your questions answered, hopefully. I'm just going to have a last little look through our Q&A panel to see if there are any more that I've missed that I can ask now before we finish.
If I can add while you're looking.
Sorry?
If I can add one
go ahead, yeah.
While you're looking, just to remind everyone that Iceland is not whaling anymore. Iceland has stopped whaling. So there's no reason for boycott Iceland because of whaling. It's stopped, and hopefully forever. So you are very welcome, those who have been waiting for this great news to be spread around.
Brilliant. Thank you, Appy. Right, well, I think I'm just going to say a big thank you to our panelists. We've almost run out of time. I hope everyone who has joined us has found this useful and inspiring and informative, but also reassuring in planning your holiday to Iceland. Please don't forget that Discover the World's flexibility promise gives you that crucial financial security and peace of mind. If you have any questions about visiting Iceland, call Discover the World and you will be speaking to the leading experts in the business. They can tailor-make any trip you like to Iceland. We've been talking mainly about self-drive holidays, but we offer a range of hiking and escorted tours when they become possible in the near future too. And of course, now it's a very simple matter to arrange a video appointment to talk to any of the travel specialists at Discover the World. I'd like to thank our panel very much, Friedrich, Appy, Linné, and Clive, for shining a light on this incredible destination. And a special thank you to you two for joining us this evening. Please keep safe, happy travels, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you and goodbye.